Hello guys, and welcome back. And in this video I'm going to be demonstrating how I install my feeder wires to my track. If you've already done this, you probably want to skip this video because it's just going to be redundant information for you. But if you've never installed feeder wires before, you may want to stick around and watch the video. I think there's some nuances that are probably going to be helpful for you when you go to install your feeder wires. So with that said, the first thing I do is I take my wire, and the wire that I actually use is I purchased this at Home Depot. It's 20 gauge bell wire, and the reason I like to use this wire for my feeder wires is because it's a solid wire. It's not stranded, so it has some rigidity to it, and I like that because it makes it a lot easier to feed down through your tabletop into the holes that you've drilled for your feeder wires. But what I do is I take and I cut off about 5 inches of both the red and the white wire, and there I'm just showing that, just checking to make sure my drill bit is big enough to enable the feeder wires to be fed down through the tabletop. But I drill the holes on the outside of each rail opposite of each other in between the railroad ties, and you just might want to be careful that you don't get too close to the rail. If you should get too close and kind of mess up the top of the rail, you can take a flat file and just kind of file that down so you don't cause any derailments of any of your rolling stock. But I take the wire and I strip about 3/8 of an inch off each end, and I fold the wire over at a 90-degree angle. There I'm demonstrating what part of the wire is going to be soldered to the webbing of the rail. Another thing I do to the wire is actually before I bend it 90 degrees, I kind of flatten it out a little bit. This helps the solder to adhere to the end of the rail, to the end of the feeder wire when I go to tin the wire. And so, after I get my feeder wires fed down through the tabletop, just take them and I just kind of bend them back a little bit, just to kind of get them out of the way, because I know I'm going to be soldering on the rail here shortly. But I take my wires and I'm going to tin the red and the white wire right now. And the reason that like I said, the reason I tin the wires is because it just helps the wire to the soldering process. So when you actually go to connect the wire to the railing, the solder that I'm using, it's actually electrical solder, so it has flux in it, so I don't really need to go and add any flux to the wire before I tin the wire. There I'm just adding just a little bit. It doesn't really take much. The way I do it is I just kind of cover up the wire, the actual part that I folded. I just kind of cover that up a little bit, and making sure that that I've got somewhat of a little bit of a bead of solder at the very end of the wire. And so after I get that done, I take a flat file and I come through and I turn the file sideways and I score the siding of the webbing of the rail. And the reason I do this is because it helps the solder to adhere to the rail. If you don't do this, you might find that as you go to apply solder to the webbing of the rail, it just kind of beads up and rolls off of the webbing of the rail when you try to solder the feeder wires to the rail. So there I'm just adding the solder to the webbing of the rail. It's kind of hard for me to do without getting my hands in the way of the camera, but yeah, so I'm able to get the solder to the webbing of the rail. Like I said, it doesn't really take a whole lot, so you just want enough just to kind of tin the rail. Normally do a little bit better job in doing this, but it's kind of hard to get to and not get in the way of the camera. One other thing you want to be mindful of is if you heat the rail up first, it helps with the tinning of the rail. So there I'm just heating the rail up with my soldering iron, and then I go in and add the solder to the rail. So then after I'm done doing that, I just drop the wire the rest of the way down, making sure the end of the wire is hitting the webbing of the rail. And then I just take my soldering iron, and at this point I don't need to add any more solder. So there I'm just kind of grabbing the wire with my needle nose pliers just to hold it in place. Then I come in with my soldering iron and just attach it. Solder the wire to the track. And you know what you're looking for is a nice shiny solder. And I don't know if you can really tell from that camera shot there, but you know, like I said, you don't need to put a ton of solder on there. It only takes a little bit just to hold the wire in place. And there I'm doing the common rail as well. So, you know, if you do get any solder on the top of the rail, there's a way to fix that. And you know, what you'll want to do is you'll want to come in with a flat file and just file the top of the rail down, because if you leave that solder up on your rail, it's going to cause your rolling stock to derail. So there, I just went ahead and finished attaching the common feeder wire to the common rail, and looks like everything went in pretty good. So yeah, at this point I came in with my flat file. I think I did add a little bit of solder to the top of that rail because I wanted to demonstrate, you know, how to come in and just kind of file the top of the railing down. Doesn't really take much pressure. You know, you just want to make sure it's flat. If you have some solder sticking out to the outside of the rail, that's fine, because really you're just trying to protect the flange of the wheel from, you know, if you have it on the inside of the railing, you want to deal with that, because the flange of the wheel will hit that. But here I'm just testing it out with a box car. Make sure it's nice and smooth. I love how easy that car rolls. In the train yard, I've got it set at a 0.5% grade, and it shows up right there, and it just keeps on rolling. And it's exactly what I wanted in the flat yard there. It was a 0.5% grade. So hopefully this video was helpful to you guys, and you know, when you're installing a bus wire, you probably want to drop your feeders about every 5 feet or so. I wouldn't go any less than that, and I think that would be overkill. Thank you for watching.